The last section we have is the conclusion and the various writing styles that you get to evaluate. Okay. So let's go and take a look at the conclusion. Okay. What you want to be able to do is to, again, reiterate or restate who was at fault in the deteriorating alliance between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. Okay. This needs to be a restatement. So it's not a direct copy. Okay. This should be different, right? Because now you've written the entire essay narrative. You can build on it. You can reword it. That is a little bit in a way that is a lot more clear. Okay, so it should be different than the original thesis statement. Okay, if it's exactly the same, please go and make sure you grade down on that particular thesis statement. But if it is different and it demonstrates a restatement of the thesis, please go ahead and rate it one of these particular boxes. Okay, then from there we want to get to sort of the big picture. So we want to look at the overall context of why this story is important. Okay? And so therefore, you want a discussion on the global effects of the Cold War. Okay? And so there's a number of different possibilities as we look at the big picture context, this last part here at the bottom. Okay? So to look at the bigger consequences, say, for example, to how the deterioration between the Soviet Union and the United States means now there is this global nuclear arms race, or that there are conflicts all over the globe based upon these rigid ideologies of communism versus capitalism in Korea, in Vietnam, Afghanistan, and so forth, and other things that we looked at in the previous lecture. You can also discuss the failed attempts at creating communist societies across the globe, or how there was a non-aligned movement of post-colonial nations that are doing their best to try to resist siding with the United States or the Soviet Union. Okay, so based upon this, if they were able to elaborate and go beyond identification, but an explanation of some of these ideas, go ahead and rate them based on your understanding. Okay. Now, there's one last part that I want to be able to go through with the conclusion, and that is the usage of counter-argument and rebuttal. So sort of this advanced writing section. Okay. So if they attempt this, one example would be discussing why your argument isn't the be-all, end-all. There are other arguments that others could provide for you. So in other words, they could provide some kind of counter-argument of which you can provide a rebuttal for. So let me provide an example of what that might look like. So let's say, for example, you decided to write that the Soviet Union was at fault for intensifying the Cold War by staunchly resisting American efforts to rebuild Europe. Okay. However, again, as a counter-argument, others might say, many would say that the Soviet Union was actually trying to prevent another invasion of its homeland after multiple devastating attempts by enemies in the past. So it's been invaded several times in the last 200 years. Okay. A rebuttal, however, might be, so in other words, someone has raised the counter-argument. You can provide a further rebuttal with something like this. However, the democratic government of the United States would reject a massive, bloody, devastating conflict with the Soviet Union. So in other words, America being a democracy will mean that the general public would resist us ever taking an aggressive action, creating an aggressive war against such a powerful foe. And so therefore would never choose to purposefully bring about another world war through aggressive action. Because we're a democracy, we will not choose to engage in such a war. Despite Soviet fears of this. So again, a counter-argument and then a rebuttal. Now, all of this is optional and it is extra credit. So if they attempt it, rate it based upon your own understanding. Okay. And lastly, you want to take a look at the writing style and document completion. Okay. So based upon how you've read it, did it use distinct paragraphs? Were there transition sentences? Was there good grammar? Was there good spelling? And so forth. And then go and make a rating based upon your decision making. And your own understanding. And in the last part, you have a document counter that you should have been filling out at this point here. All of this should automatically translate to points. So if you've been checking out these boxes, it'll automatically fill in the point total for you. And then finally, if you actually have an essay in front of you, go and make sure you click yes right here so that they get the submission bonus and the submission points. Okay, that wraps up our peer edit. I hope this helps for your rewrite of the essay.